All right, thank you very much, Harry. Good morning in the USA to you, and good afternoon to Charles in London. My name is Jeffrey, and I'm coming to you from Southampton. And basically, today we want to talk about the issue of trafficking, in the sense of human trafficking. Obviously, there's different kinds of trafficking, but our focus is on human trafficking. And this is because of the big story that broke out last week about the Kenyan, the US sex tourists, the white sex tourists that went to Kenya, infected a lot of young females with HIV. And basically, this is an awareness post. And so we're going to be looking at what is trafficking, the causes of trafficking, the issues surrounding trafficking. I'm going to start off, and then Harry and Charles will come in and give their views as well. Let me welcome everybody that is viewing us and continues to follow us loyally. We really appreciate the support, guys. Just keep it coming. Ours is all about giving you knowledge, empowering and supporting the community. We don't mean to harm anybody or offend anybody, and if we do, we absolutely apologize. So what is trafficking then? Basically, trafficking, dealing or trading in something illegal, and this could be firearms, it could be human beings, and that's our focus. Our focus is on human trafficking. Now, on the surface of it, it seems nothing really, but the human trafficking industry is grossing between $150 to $200 million a year. So it's quite a huge industry. There's a lot of money to be made in it. And there are other benefits from it as well, such as cheap labor. What we're doing today here is to just provide, awareness, like we said. Now, there are two kinds of trafficking. There's three kinds of trafficking, basically. There's labor trafficking, where people are trafficked for their labor, and then they're held captive, almost slave-like conditions, where they're forced to work. The hours are not defined. And this is the kind of labor we see, like, for people going to the United Arab Emirates. We see that as well for traffickers taking advantage of people from the villages in sort of West Africa and bringing them to the UK and keeping them in some people's homes to look after their old people. Then there's the issue of sex trafficking. Obviously, that's the one that makes the most money. So they go out and bring these young girls and even boys nowadays and put them in shanty houses or by the roadside, and everybody just passes by and pays to have sex with them. And then there's the debt bondage, which is kind of like somebody comes, as helping, and then to give you a better life and all these things. And then they pay for your travel, everything. And then they charge you interest on their sponsorship. Say if they sponsored you to the tune of $10,000, they're going to ask you to pay back probably $30,000 or 20,000 pounds back. And this is common again in West African communities as well. The causes, well, the academician says poverty, unemployment, displacement, lack of knowledge, broken families, cultural practices. In certain African societies, there's a practice that's been going on for years whereby poorer families give their children to the richer families to help and train and educate them. Unfortunately, some of it ends up into some sort of trafficking or slavery. The effects, the people that are trafficked get to suffer a lot of mental trauma, a lot of physical trauma. Obviously, they're working very hard. They suffer a lot of isolation. There's nobody to talk to when they need somebody, and we see some end up committing suicide. So it's really a serious thing. When they come out of it, they lack, independent living skills. They basically cannot live on their own because they've been held in a situation where they're instructed and told everything they need to do, sort of to speak. And that very briefly is kind of what what human trafficking is all about. Now, if Harry, very briefly, you can come in with some examples. I know we talked about Italy, southern Italy, and others, but I'm very interested in exploring the Kavala system of the Middle East, because that seems to be the destination for most Africans right now, and they're going through a lot over there, and we see horrible videos of them being kicked and punished. If we can look at it generally and also look at, issues, international issues such as labor laws, and, obviously Africa has a lot of cheap labor, and it's one of the things that could bring a lot of revenue to the continent. But I believe it's being very mismanaged at the moment, and it's being run by criminal gangs, sort of, almost, to speak. Harry, let me come to you first on the issue. I will come back and discuss the routes. Obviously, every route has different dangers as well. So we'll come back to that later, by air and those going by sea through Libya and other exit routes, and some examples. If you could come in, please, Harry, and just highlight some of the key issues and how it affects individuals, and generally, your thoughts about the whole subject.
Yeah, first of all, would like to thank our viewers today for taking their time to use their precious, valuable Sunday to get on our forum and come to learn, more especially the youth in our region that are too vulnerable to such practice. So going straight to the topic today, we are talking about trafficking, as you said. So the simplest way how I can define trafficking, it's an illegal business. Illegal business. It might look legal, they might have all paperwork, but it will be illegal. So going to the topic, sorry, to what you requested me to give me all the sorts of examples of trafficking. One, the biggest issue is human trafficking, which is kind of like a modern day slavery. Then there's domestic servitude. Then there's labor trafficking, which still affect human beings. So just to go just straight to the point, yeah, those are the main example I'm giving, since those are like the areas that pretty much affect not only our region, not only the youth in Uganda, but Africa as a whole, actually the whole world, anywhere where there's kind of like a second world or third world countries. Those are the areas, the major form of trafficking that affects those regions.
Okay, thank you very much. If Charles, if you can come in as well and sort of give your views and thoughts, and then we will start looking at certain key examples, how people get lured into it, and how the family's role in protecting their own children, obviously. And I think as well, the definition of poverty and the perception of poverty, we might need to touch on that, because what West is using to call Africa poor is really a very bogus measure of poverty, sort of, to speak. If you've been in the West, you will realize that poverty for material things is not really poverty in itself, but that is a very very sort of academic area to go into. But we will have to touch on it anyway, because then it can help to open our people's eyes to see that they're really not that poor, and life is not as bad as they think for themselves. So Charles, if you could come in with your thoughts on trafficking and examples, please.
Right. So thank you so much, especially to our viewers out there, for sticking with us. Today's topic, in my opinion, is one of the most important topics, which is not really appreciated out there. And I think it's important to say that any form of sex trafficking or labor trafficking or human trafficking, any form of trafficking of this nature is illegal under the United Nations Charter, which I believe our country, Uganda, is a signatory to. So whether the country, Uganda, might be interested to prosecute is immaterial, because if the whole world appreciates that it's an illegal act, then you are actually committing a crime for which you will be held to account. In the case of Uganda, it's a very, very serious matter. First of all, I'll just talk about one aspect, which I think you will see that this topic is so serious. One issue is that you'll find people going to university to study a particular course. Let's say medicine. A student has gone to university to study medicine under the sponsorship of so-called trafficker, or they may have gone there legitimately, being sponsored by their parents. But then when they get to the university and they are now on the verge of doing their exams so that they now become fully fledged members of the medical profession, so to speak, you'll find that there are some lecturers, and this is been well documented. Lecturers do offer grades for sex. Now, you might think this is a small thing. It is, first of all, it's dehumanizing for the individual concerned, because they don't have to offer themselves to the lecturer in order to gain good grades. So that's on one dimension. On another dimension, if they now pass their exams and they become a fully fledged member of the medical profession, they're out there practicing medicine. So you can see the repercussion for that. We all, innocently walk into a hospital, hoping that we are going to be looked after by someone who is competent and has gone through the rigorous training to become a practitioner. And now here you are, not knowing you are being looked after by someone who has actually passed because they have offered themselves for sex in exchange for them passing their exams. And
so in a sense, they're not really qualified to be doing what they're doing.
They're not qualified. And I'm talking about medicine because that is probably the highest profession which people should enter through merit. In other words, you cannot be there and then anybody second guesses your competence.
Very true.
Yeah. So you can see that very suddenly you get to the hospital, you want to be diagnosed for the ailment that has taken you there. Because they are not now qualified, they will give you a wrong diagnosis. And now, what is the result of that? You could end up losing your life, and the life of your family might depend on you. So you can see the knock-on effect. That ends up affecting the government, because the government has lost you. You were a taxpayer. The government is losing out on revenue. The economy is going down. And then it's a question of, to what extent is this practice happening within the society? Yeah. When we talk about corruption, that is one, people don't look at sex trafficking or human trafficking as one of the biggest problems that the country is actually having to face. And I think as we go through the discussion later on, I will be bringing in some other examples which shows that, to be honest, the system needs an overhaul, because nobody seems to be standing up there with a moral authority to make sure that everything works the way it should work. I'm going to talk about the legal profession, how corrupt the legal system is. And if you have been unfortunate enough to go through the legal system, you would understand that even if you have a very good case, you are the person who is on the opposite side, who has got a very weak case, could have money, and then they buy the magistrate or the chief justice or the judge who is presiding over your case, and you end up losing a case which you have got quite a ton of witnesses in favor of. So I think this is a very important topic, and I'm glad that we are looking at it. And for now, let me stop here. But there's a lot more examples that I'm going to be bringing forth.
I think we will stay right there, because you raise a very critical issue, and that is the issue of our governments neglecting their human resource and the sort of knock-on effects that seem to have. Besides the natural resources and everything else, the greatest resource to any nation is their human resource, their labor, their skilled labor, and even unskilled labor. And this is why we see industry moving from the West, where labor cost is very high, and going into China, where labor used to be cheap. Now the price of labor is going up in China. We see them going to Asia. We see the United Arab Emirates were struggling. They didn't have the skills, the manpower to build their towers, and they're bringing in people from Asia. And now they're super rich. They can't be bothered to wipe their own ass. They're bringing people from Africa. So the human resource, if it's well managed, I think it could do wonders for the African continent as a whole. But